Welcome to the Carpet Cleaning Success Podcast. AI Marketing Experts is your backstage pass to the future of marketing. Hosted by a powerhouse crew of AI-savvy entrepreneurs, including John Clendenning, this weekly show unpacks the tools, trends, and real-world applications of artificial intelligence in digital marketing.
Hello, welcome to another episode of AI Marketing Experts. I'm here again with our friends. We all love to get together to nerd out on what's new with AI and how you as marketers or small business owners can really grasp the tools that are out there and run with it. So again, we're going to just go with rapid fire with a lot of things discussing content today and why it's going to make a difference with what you put forth on your website, your social media, all of your digital marketing and your digital footprints. So again, I'm Laura Southerly with Activation, and I'm just one of the 5 here that will be going around talking about this. So don't forget, subscribe, share this information. We're rolling these out weekly and looking to give you the tips that can move you and your business forward. So let's go ahead and start. We were talking a little bit about, of course, branding. We tend to bring that into a lot of discussions and why it's different now than what it used to be, and the importance it brings. And the other thing too, we're going to deep dive in is, again, the content. AI is, of course, wanting your content. It is thirsty for content, and you know your business better than anyone. So how can you put your content out there differently and why it matters? Because in the last few episodes, we've talked about how people may not be clicking through, but now they may use a browser that they don't realize is all AI. And so that solution is going to be offered up to them. And if your content's not answering the questions they're asking, you might be left behind. So who wants to start diving in on these topics that we're going to provide, and some tips that our listeners and viewers can walk away with and know that they've made a difference in their online presence?
I'll start in with just the hot button that we kind of talked about last time. So around paid ads and stuff like that. 2 things going on. Google is a money-making machine, and their gravy train is going down a different trail. I don't know if that's anywhere near a good analogy. I'm terrible at metaphors and analogies, but we'll try gravy trains and trails. But so what's going on is search is going up. What Google's noticing and the world's noticing is there's more people searching now than ever before, by a lot. AI is making it easier to get the answers. So more people are asking the questions, but they're not asking, carpet cleaner near me, roofing service near me, like the keyword type of searches. They are doing those rambling, chatty searches that we talk about, whether they're doing it in Google, whether they're doing it in ChatGPT or whatever. But Google's noticing, hey, we got to stay relevant. We got to give good answers, but we still got to make money, right? So search is going up, while clicks, pay-per-click, click through to websites, traffic that you see on your website is going down. It's more targeted, better people, not as much garbage. 95% of traffic used to show up on your website and leave, do nothing. We should see engagement on the website go up if the websites are built right. But traffic is going down because search is answering the questions, like what they call it, a zero-click search, right? So how does Google make money on zero-click search? How do you make sure that you appear in zero-click search? And that's kind of where this whole conversation needs to go is if less people coming to your website, why do you need more content? Because you need a lot more content than you can possibly imagine for less people showing up on the website, but to train the AI on what you do.
Yes, it does seem to be kind of a different way of thinking, because again, we were a lot of content, then we went to very targeted content with keywords, making sure that we were going to capture and then at least be one of the search results, and you aim to be that first page. But as was mentioned by John, is that now if it's providing you an answer, they can read in the suggested questions that are being showed to them. They might not even have to type in or ask the next question. It's being offered up because, again, it's thinking with intent. So Google and all of the AI browsers are starting to look at intent. So again, Jen, what would that matter when it comes to branding?
So what was coming to mind for me just now is like, how can we better explain this to new business owners who are like, just trying to wrap their head around the whole thing, and you throw brand in there, and a lot of times small business owners are like, I'm too busy running my business, doing the important things. I don't have time to think about brand. Like it just sounds like, or a lot of people perceive it to be kind of this luxury thing. And so I wish that we had, or that I had a better term for brand that would, make it resonate with small business owners so that they understand how vital it is right now. But it's really the difference of like your business to AI and the searchers and your target audience, your business basically being a stick figure, or your business being a full human. Like that is the difference that a brand can make because you have to hit it from all sides. You can't just like, put a hat on a stick figure and think that it's where it needs to be. It's like you really have to hit it from all the content from different angles, the medium from different angles, the whole thing. So
and I think that's a great analogy on that. And I think that with our discussions as we've dealt with had the pleasure of working with our current clients, all of us here, when they might say, I'm not getting the right phone calls or the right emails or the right contacts, it could be that they just have a stick figure out there and they're not attracting those ideal clients and customers. Ideal for us, the growers, to actually say, I'm in that location. I want to work with you. You're going to be my precision ag dealership or my equipment dealership, my roofer, or, when it comes to automotive, you want to make sure that, like you said, it's an all around thing. So Chris and Brad, you have some insight as to the content to help, build out and make sure that we're attracting we'll say persona, but we want that ideal customer that gets us excited and we want to work with them.
I think a couple of things come to mind when I'm thinking about this. I know we touched on it a little bit at the beginning before we even hit record, is how much content do you need these days? And I think that John mentioned that one post a week isn't going to cut it anymore, that you might need 10 a week or whatever the case may be. And then of course that's up for debate. But the more content you can put out in a lot of ways can be better, but just to put out content that isn't put together correctly isn't really going to be that helpful. So using different AI tools where you can put in some of your brand personas to begin with so that it knows how to help you create the right kind of content is going to be a big step in the right direction. And then from there, it's like, okay, there are systems that you can use to build these things out, to automate some of these things, have team members help you with. But I think as it continues to shift more and more, that, all of us are going to have to determine how are we or the teams that we hire, if you're a small business, going to do this, or are we even going to do it? Because things shift so quickly. But I don't think that content and good quality content is going to go away. And like what was mentioned before, by answering the questions that your prospective customers or current customers are going to be asking, if you can answer those types of things within your content in a powerful way, those are the ways that you're going to start showing up in the different searches, whether that's on Google or if it's Google AI Overview or if it's one of the other LLMs who are going to continue to showcase FAQ type things in AI overview type scenarios. So again, it's changing and it's morphing into something different. But I don't think that even in the past that putting out good content wasn't relevant. I mean, I think it's changing and maybe we have to do more. But it still comes back to quality. It still comes back to speaking to your consumer. And it still comes back to how are we going to handle this? How are we going to automate it? And how are we going to put it in place?
Very good. And I think those are some good pointers that you provided, Brad, of listen to what they're asking, and maybe ask the people that are answering your phones, what was the questions that you received today, and record those. If you've got sales teams out on the road, or you're attending events, industry events, in-person events, you're shaking your potential client's hand, listen and take note as to what they're asking. And we're not talking about just putting it just an FAQ section or page out there. We're actually saying build out content based on that. Now, if is there anything else that you were saying about not putting out the wrong content? Is there some guidance that you would or recommendations to our listeners or viewers that you would have, Brad, to say this is what to steer away from?
Well, AI can be a really powerful tool, and you could just hit go, but it can put out stuff that's going to be subpar. It can put out stuff that's not true. It could put out content that you don't want out there because it's fake or BS or whatever the case may be. Um, Maybe that's the title of our show today. Is it BS, right? We talked about that earlier. So, I mean, just it's a matter of you use the AI platforms as a springboard, but then you have to humanize it. So you have to go and say, okay, this looks good. And remember, when you're working with ChatGPT, for example, you're talking to something. You're talking to the robot or whatever you want to call it. So if it looks good but it's missing something, tell it that. Say, man, this looks really great. Can you add another segment in there about XYZ? And leverage the fact that it can do this heavy lifting for you. Again, proofread what it produces, but make it your partner, you know?
Yeah, that's very valid. And I think that we'll tie it together with the branding here in a moment. But Chris, if they're still struggling for, okay, I don't have time. I know Brad just said I can just talk to AI and it's going to go ahead and provide me this great feedback. But again, how am I going to come up with this content? Do you have any recommendations on pillars or, something like your go-to mix that you would recommend to help out?
Absolutely. There's all sorts of different ways to kind of skin a cat, right? Um, and for lack of a better term here, and honestly, one of the biggest mistakes that I see we assess 4 to 5 roofing companies marketing every single day, right? And at my company, and the biggest mistake that I see is just what we're talking about here: not enough content, right, at all. And most of them are websites, and I'm talking websites in general right now. Their website is maybe a page. And when I say maybe, it's like it's a glorified business card, right? Yeah. The other issue that I see is that they just don't build out content anywhere else either. They might be good at building content and putting stuff out there on Instagram, but then they're completely ignoring Facebook, or they're not posting anything on X or LinkedIn. They all ignore LinkedIn. Don't even get me started on that. Right. But going back to your question is, how do you actually do this? Right. How do you build the framework in order to do that? Well, first you've got to start, and this is, and you have to take in context that I've have this system in place and have had this system in place for my customers, for my clients for the past 20 years. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's about building content, right? You can do this now using AI, but you still need people in the middle to make sure, right? And you just talked about that. But how do you build out the framework? Well, the first thing, you have to know what you want to write about. Okay. So ask ChatGPT, come up with a list of 10 different topics, 10 different titles based off of, in the roofing industry, right? Based off of roofing, mm-hmm. right? In College Station, Texas. That's where I'm sitting right now. Right. And it'll come up with some good ideas. You can just bounce back and forth on those ideas until you actually approve those titles. Right. This is the same process, by the way, that we did with our clients 20 plus years ago. Just we started with the title. Okay. Mm-hmm. Next, you want to do a little bit of research. If you don't know anything about that, and you have to assume that ChatGPT doesn't know anything. Sorry, it knows a lot. It doesn't know everything, right? That's where I'm trying to get at here. Have it do some research first, right? Why don't you give me some research on this title, Okay. That's exactly what we'd assign to a writer, and a writer would need to do that too. Okay. A human writer way back in the day would go out and find some information about this. Then you have it write it. Okay. Again, this doesn't always have to be Chat GPT. That's what the vast majority of people use. But make sure that it writes in your tone and your voice, and you can train it these days in order to do that. Okay. That's what we do with all of our clients. We have OpenAI in the back end of everything with all of our stuff, but we feed it all of the information first about the client. Okay. Things about their services, how long they've been in business, down all the way down to their writing style, and feed it a few things. If they've ever written anything, then feed that to the LLMs, the Chat GPTs, or Claude if you use that, whatever. So I don't know if that's a definite but that would be, I would start with process, right? Start with your process, get the titles, get the topics first. Honestly, what topics are you going to be writing about?
Right.
What titles about that? And then have it outlined, possibly do some research about it, then just finally write it, and then have a human actually go through it and make sure it's factually correct, and that it doesn't sound Chat GPT-ish, which it can sometimes,
Well, and those are some fantastic points. And the one question we tend to ask our clients as well, when they are saying we need a blog or we need additional content, I ask, will it get your phone ringing for the client that you want? Because say for roofing that you wrote, or they decide to pull together a commercial roof job, and they don't want to do any kind of commercial, or vice versa, residential, then that might not be content that they build because they don't want their phone ringing for that. And again, I'm glad that you mentioned about training. We've done several discussions about that, but that becomes very, very valuable to have that in place ahead of time. So again, it makes it your voice, your brand consistent throughout. John, I know that you had some recommendations about topical authority.
With putting back on I was a carpet cleaner for running carpet cleaning companies and maid service companies for 27 years. This digital marketing thing kind of came out of consulting. So put on the hat of the business owner that I was. This sounds like crap. This sounds like way too much stuff. This sounds like, okay, this is maybe someday put that on the back burner. I got to go fix a machine, or get the guys out the door, or, whatever it is. Where do I get the content ideas? How does this even make sense? So dumbing it down, there's a service called Answer the Public. It's a website. You can go and figure out what people are asking. You can go into Google and type in a search phrase that you think people are typing in. How do I get cat pee out of my carpet? And then see what Google suggests. And every time you click on one, it gets bigger. Every time you click on one, it gets bigger. Then there's some scrapers you can get that will scrape Google suggests and stuff like that. So to build a list of questions that people are asking, get the book. They asked to answer by Marcus Sheridan for sure. Listen to it, understand how that transformed a business. Like, what was that, 10, 15 years ago, or whatever that book came out, a long time ago. Anyways, long enough ago. It wasn't in the AI era. But yeah, build a spreadsheet of those questions for sure. But then also, how do you use some AI that we're talking about? Every single phone call should be, in today's day and age, at end of 2025, whenever you're listening to this, every single phone call should be recorded and transcribed and put into a database. You should be asking questions against a database of what are the questions that we're getting on a regular basis. Every email, every text message should be put into a database of just, this is what the public, my customers, is asking, so that you can go into an LLM of your choice, give it reference to that Airtable or that Google Doc or whatever it is, and say, can you give me a list of 20, 40 off the cuff questions that I should be having content towards? For example, somebody might ask hey, do these guys hire local people, or do they use subcontractors? Any service we're talking about, right? And it's like, somebody could just ask that question about a company or whatever. They're not going to go to your website. They're not going to read 20 pages. They're just asking, Google, is there any carpet cleaners in the local area, any roofers in the local area that have their own employees and don't use subcontractors or whatever? If you've created content on your website Maybe you did it because somebody asked that question, you grabbed your phone and you chatted about it. Now you've got video content and you just put it out there on Instagram. And then you took that transcript from that, and with a really good prompt that, as Chris said, has your brand voice, your brand style, maybe even knowing, about your kids and your dog and your cat. Like maybe you even pull that in. And so in the story, it actually weaves about the local market. And that's just like my cat Fluffy did this and did that. Like all of a sudden, the content that you're writing out of AI just sounds like so natural. You still have a human review it, but the more natural you can have it, the more, even if a human doesn't read it, more likely they will. AI is picking up the authenticity of that as well when it's giving an answer. So you might have mentioned that, hey, here's our employees loading the truck, and yeah, we use our own employees and blah blah blah, and they're all in-house employees and not 1099s or whatever, and blah 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 and all that kind of stuff. You could have that conversation, turn it into a blog post, and so your content generation could be the questions you get asked, answer them by phone, create a video content, hand it off to a team like us or somebody in your company to create really great content that goes on your website, and then share that out as snippets on social media, and break that up into little pieces. And now that one little voice conversation you had for 2 minutes turned into an entire tidal wave of content on your Google business listing, on your Reddit. Reddit is where LLMs are looking as well. So nobody uses Reddit in business. Reddit is where you can have a first mover advantage if you can provide good value and not get kicked off the platform because you're spamming it. That's a really good place as well. So feed the engine, but don't make it hard. Make it as simple as recording 2 or 3 minutes and answering a question once or twice a day, and hand it off to somebody else to then turn it into the tidal wave we're talking about.
And to your point, John, it is so much easier these days, especially with the LLM on our phones, again, our $1,000 equipment in our pocket, that when you have that windshield time, I mean, that's probably the one thing with a lot of our clients and a lot of small business, they are in the moment doing their work, doing the job. But if they're in between driving or doing estimates, or they are having just a quiet moment or two that they can just talk to an LLM and have that discussion, it starts that tidal wave. And I don't know if anybody else wants to build on here what John's saying regarding where you can take that content and how to repurpose it over and over again. It becomes, again, just content that drives more of the ideal customers. Because as was mentioned at the very beginning, we may not be getting the clicks, we may not seeing people on our pages, but the quality of person making that phone call or filling out that form or reaching out to you as a small business owner will most likely be a customer of yours, because the research has already been done. They're not calling and saying, hey, do you do, this type of med spa work or not? They know because you put that content out there.
Yeah. And I think that what a lot of small business owners miss the point on anything with content, anything with branding, anything with a lot of their own marketing, is that a lot of this stuff is a long-term play, right? Mm-hmm. This isn't, I'm going to write articles or have ChatGPT write articles, and next month I'm going to get, X amount of leads, whatever, right? This is years down the road. Really, when it all becomes into this flywheel effect, because you have been putting out content on a regular basis so very long that you are now the choice, not only now in homeowners' eyes, right? In my case, but you're now number one choice in ChatGPT's eyes, because you have thousands of pieces of content, because you've been able to repurpose it and massively spread that footprint. So going back to what I was saying, what I've noticed on auditing, assessing, we call it assessing because no one likes the word audit, but we've assessed thousands of roofing companies' marketing, and 99% of them have, like I said, one page maybe on Facebook, that they have maybe 10 posts on. But their competitors, if you look at their competitors have these thousands of pieces of content that they've been building over the past 10 years, know? So in anything with search intent, it's king of the hill. You've got to do more than what the competition does, and you've got to do it better. So.
And Brad and
Anyways.
Jen, do you have anything? So, in case our listeners and our viewers are saying, "Oh, I cannot do thousands and thousands of pieces," we want them to actually, we want everybody that's listening to hear what we're actually saying. If you take again that conversation with that ideal customer and decide this is not decide, but hear what they're asking and build content over and over based on that. Because again, if we go around the room and say, ask a question about AI, we can guarantee each of us would have a different question or a different way to approach the exact same thing. So Jen and Brad, do you have anything regarding, so does it feel so overwhelming to come up with that content? How would be to take those simple steps building on what we've already mentioned today?
Well, I can just say, oh, like it's the old analogy of, how do you eat an elephant? Of course, one bite at a time. So like, okay, you can't do 1,000 like tomorrow, but you have to start today. Like Chris mentioned, it's a long-term game.
Mhm.
And so what you do today will affect your business in a year, 5 years, 10 years. And so it's just really important to start, I think. If you can always start with where you're most comfortable. So I know a lot of my med spa clients, they love doing video, like, which I don't think I will ever understand because it's not my wheelhouse. That's not my favorite go-to, but a lot of them love it. And so we're able to take that video and turn it into written content. But a lot of other business owners, they might start with written and then, do a video based on that. So start with where you're comfortable. Just start. That's
Great point. Great point. Brad?
I think that everybody had some good points. One thing that I don't know was totally mentioned was most business owners, and John touched on this, most business owners are just going to say, I just don't know that I ever going to have the time. This is way too daunting for me. Hire an expert like somebody on this show who has systems, who has software, who has ways to take written content or video content or photos or whatever it is that is your superpower that you can provide to an agency like one of us. And then we know how to chop it up and syndicate it in different areas and put it to good use in different ways because we already know there's multiple channels, like was mentioned earlier, whether people are not using LinkedIn enough or too much or one of the other platforms. There's so much. And the thing is now is with AI in the mix, if you're stumped on ideas, one thing that could help you is you can now use AI to go and look at your competitors' videos, for example, have it do a summary, like if you have YouTube Premium or just use an AI tool to summarize that video. You can take those summaries and go, wow, I wouldn't even thought of that idea. I just summarized this video. I didn't have to watch 20 minutes of this other guy talking, but now I have 4 new ideas that I can get to my agency to work with that I think are relevant. Or I could have somebody in-house take these ideas or what have you. There's even tools where you can import multiple videos into the software, for example, to say, search these videos for ideas that are relevant to what I do, and spit me out a video script or a blog post summary or whatever it is. And so you don't have to reinvent the wheel anymore because there's so many different things. And then I think in closing would be find ways to communicate with your customers, whether it's like John saying you're taking every text and every phone call and everything from your customers and utilizing those in AI systems to determine what people are asking, or just find a way to start communicating with them, or have your staff communicate with them or whatever it is to say, okay, what do they need help with? What are they thinking when they're saying, okay, I need a new roof, but I don't know the difference between a metal roof, a shingle roof, and a tile roof. I mean, there's plenty of questions out there. And again, ask AI, ask your staff to ask your clients or borrow other people's ideas.
Yes.
See, my
That's a
question
great.
would actually be, what's a roof when we call it a roof here in Canada? We actually use the O's in that, and I've noticed that most of my American friends do not use the O's in that word. But another thing, just a quick, so a good friend of the group of ours, Jay, who works with very, very high-powered lawyers who never have time to do all this kind of stuff. He introduced to us at one of our masterminds about how he sends out a video crew. He does it that way, but it could be a Zoom call like this, option number two, or you could go into ChatGPT and say, interview me, and turn your camera on and have ChatGPT interview you as the business. There's three. You don't have to publish these videos. This, what he does it for is the ones that want to publish. That's great. But he says after about 3 hours, lawyers get grumpy. So they do a 3-hour thing. It equals about 12 weeks of content. Out of those questions they ask these lawyers, you have their answers, you have the video, if they're allowing you to use the video, you have their voice, you have their tonality, you can feed the AI engine, you have the answers, you have the nuance, all that kind of stuff, because this is all about nuance. It's AI is like, we talked about this before. You mentioned it, Laura, on one of the other calls about, like, say, for example, you're a runner and you have plantar fasciitis, so you're buying shoes, and well, AI knows that if the memory's on. Right. So your output that AI is going to give you is going to be different than mine, or if I go into a new tool with no memory, and it's going to be different than the tools that are trying to tell us if you're showing up in AI or not. But the ultimate thing is it's that nuanced that you've got to think of your content not being this formula in a box, because we don't know. It's got to be free flow. So if you can interview and just chat, have ChatGPT or any of these interview you and just turn the camera on and record it. Ask me 12 questions. Here's a list. Here's my spreadsheet. Go down this sheet, form your own questions of what people that listen to these 2 weeks worth of calls, and come up with 20 questions to ask me, pitch to me, and I'll just answer it the way I do. And then it records the answers. Now you've got your feeder data for everything else you want to do. So find a good way to just get that input in somewhere. And then agencies like us can help take it out of there and turn it into the nuance that puts you ahead of 99% of your competitors as the world is changing around us.
And that's just to piggyback on that, John, mentioned nuance a couple of times, and it's just so important. AI looks for, patterns, repetition, like it's not a human. I mean, as much as it does so many things, but it's not human. And so it's specifically looking for content that disrupts the pattern to say that content is human content, like that it's so the more nuanced that we can be with all of the content, the more important it is for AI.
And that's a good point, because we know even our own customers, our own clients, they are all unique. They have that unique value proposition and such. So they know that their own customers are going to bring different questions, different ways to them, whether they be cat lovers or dog lovers when it comes to carpet cleaning, or, again, the med spa.
When my granddaddy owned the farm, right, Laura?
Yes, exactly.
Like,
exactly.
In your content.
Right. And when we write content, we do know that we've got, different generations that we're speaking to. Some like to go deep dive into the research. Others just want to be able to see those videos and such. So the one recommendation we give, ask your team. Their chances are one of your hires, one of your team members likes to do social media or loves to be on video, and they might be the natural to step in front of that camera and answer those questions of the day and feel very, very at ease to just be that person. So you as your business owner do not have to be the one on camera. Interviewing, as John was saying, is a great way, but I think having other team members, they then feel valuable, but also it brings a different personality and interrupts, like you said, it's definitely human made content on that. So I think that's a good way. Chris, you seem to have a thought on that.
No, and I was just sitting there thinking, in this day and age right now, we always say that, right? But right now, as we're standing right now, like, content has gotten so easy to create, and we've already talked about it. Written content here is what we've been primarily talking about. But as I'm sitting here thinking through video content, I mean, y'all have seen some of the videos that I created on VO3, with Gemini, right? It's going to be soon to where you're not going to be able to tell the difference between a human and non-human on video, right? But guess probably what will? Well, that's going to be the engines behind everything. They're going to have ways of understanding that this was a human, this was AI created, right? So I love the idea of pulling out that $1,000 machine sitting in your pocket and just turn it on and make content on your own, make videos on your own. And I think in this day and age, the more authentic that you are, even though we're talking AI marketing right now, the more authentic that you are, the better that it's going to be for the long term for you and your brand and your business, to position you as the expert and not just someone else in your market.
Very, very true.
Amen.
Brad, I know you have a lot of experience with video. Do you have any other gold nuggets that you'd like to share?
Well, I think Chris touched on some that are important, and the fact that now with AI video and how quickly it's progressing, it's clear that who knows where it will be 6 months, a year from now. But already we're utilizing many different AI video systems to put things together. So if you have a video spokesperson that is not really a human, but looks pretty realistic and can get the job done, then from that point of it, literally you just have to come up with content. You have to come up, with scripts and different things. And again, this can all be done with AI. So it's going fast. And if you're not utilizing these tools, maybe you don't like it yet, or maybe you think it's too weird, or whatever the case may be, just hold on to your hats, because it's going to continue to evolve.
Well, I think that is a great time to note to end on. I think that we've covered a lot here when we talked about going deep with the content and the difference, whether as Google's changing their model, and we're going to see that they're going to make some money off of those searches or the intent. We have to keep that in mind as we go ahead and grow our content on our website and our digital footprint. It's not just throwing up content to have it out there. We want to make sure it's human reviewed. You are using your expert voice or your team's expert voice to bring it in an authentic manner. You want to always review it with your brand in mind. Does it echo your message? Does it bring it through? Is it what you want to pull those ideal customers to you and to work with you with that relationship? And, we had some great insight as to where, if you're struggling with what to talk about, from recording your customers' calls, like John was saying, so you can have that true question, to what Chris was recommending to Jen's, like, hey, let's get there in front of video, and what Brad was bringing forth with making sure you can do something today, that your website, your digital footprint, your marketing is being found by AI, because it will matter. So again, thanks for joining us today. Anybody else have anything else before we wrap up? Okay, well, we're just going to ask for you guys to subscribe by clicking below, share. If there's a topic that we have yet to cover or something you want us to go more in depth with, please comment. We're going to be watching for that as we move forward, and we will see you next week.